All right. Hey, everybody. We're in the green room with Michael Hatfield tonight.
Hanging out.
All right. So, I had Rich Armstrong on earlier today. And before we started talking, all I could think about was, and I said this to you, I think, when I talked to you earlier today, and Rich, if there was ever a group or a couple of guys to talk about the gigging musician, you guys, the two of you, and you especially, are sort of the meat of the working gigging musician in the Bay Area for a number of years. And
I had the badge. Yeah.
so let me. I'm not sure when you moved to the Bay Area, but let me just say that when I first moved there, it was I first was there in like 81, 82, and then I moved away for a year, and I came back and I called somebody and I said, "How do I get some gigs?" And they said, "Call Michael Hatfield." And from that point on, everybody I know, when they would come to the Bay Area, I would say, "Call Michael Hatfield." Almost everybody in the Bay Area, from then until now, it's like, if you need a singer, if you need and for a while, lights and sound, but mostly musicians. You need a drummer. You need a guitar player. Who do you know to call? Who do you get the gigs? Michael Hatfield.
I was just a connector, It's if I met some talent or whatever else, I just wanted to spread it all around. And there was back then too, there was a ton of work going on. You know what the Fairmont was like back in I moved here in 81.
Mhm.
And so there'd be 6 bands going in 6 different rooms. And on your break, you'd go hang out and catch everybody else. It was fun.
At the Fairmont in San Francisco.
Yes.
And that was the Venetian Room. When did the Venetian Room close?
Ooh, that's a good question. I want to say early 90s. I want to say I don't really remember the exact date, though I got to sub in on that band quite a bit too on Dick Bright's band.
And he was there for what, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, yeah. He had a really good run.
Right. And then in the lobby of the Fairmont was another. Didn't they have
The New Orleans room was there for a while,
Right.
and they restored that lobby now because I had no idea. No one knew actually. I moved here. The Fairmont looked like I thought it looked like, but it turns out that they had taken that room and divided it up into smaller rooms and turned half of it into the New Orleans room, a jazz room. But it really was a huge rotunda. And so during our career there, after the Venetian room started to slow down or whatever, they busted that room back open into the rotunda. It was like, whoa, all this beauty and all this marble and all this stuff came up, from this funky, New Orleans jazz room.
Right. So before you came to the Bay Area, though, where did you grow up?
Columbus, Ohio.
Ohio. And you went to Berklee School of Music.
Yeah. First, I went to Indiana University. I lasted a year there. That's the whole story how I got to Boston was because of that.
At Indiana University, when I was a kid, and people in Nebraska, there were like 3 schools that people would say to go to for music. There was North Texas State, there was Boston, Berklee, and Indiana University. They were, or at least I don't know what the rest of the state, but in the Midwest, that was a pretty big music school.
Yeah, it was actually at that time when I was there, was 1972. It was the largest music school in the world at the time.
Wow. Was there a focus on instruments or vocals, or what was the focus on music? Just
well, my sordid past was this. I was a drummer and a vibes player, and played in my high school bands and all that other stuff. I was a drum major on my high school, so I was a goofy guy on that level. And so when I applied to Indiana University, they said, well, we see you're interested in the music school, but your GPA is not quite high enough. You're really close. So they said, if you make it into our music school, we'll accept you. So everything rode on my audition. And so I prepared nothing but college material and then did it, and I got in. So,
wow. And so you were there for a year. And what made you go to Berklee?
Oh, that's a good story, because I had my buddies from IU abandoned me. I'll tell you how that worked. It was really strange. But Gary Burton was giving a clinic and a concert in Bowling Green, Ohio. And so I was at IU, and I wanted to go to this thing, and I knew I could get a ride there. I knew I could get that together, but I couldn't get a ride back. And then talked to some of my IU friends and said, "Oh no, we're going to go to that, so we'll give you a ride back." And so, okay, I went home to Ohio, visited my friends. My friend gave me a ride up to Bowling Green, dropped me off, and I talked to my friends at the concert. And they said, "Yeah, we'll meet you in the morning at 9 a.m. and we'll go back to IU." I said, "Great." So I had a place to crash. My high school girlfriend was polite enough to let me into her dorm room. That's another thing. But so I got up in the morning and went out to meet my buddies, and they were gone. And I asked the roommates, I said, where'd they go? They said, "Oh, well, they left in the middle of the night, decided they wanted to get back, and they didn't have a number for you. So there you go." So I started hitchhiking, and I was not doing very well. And it's late afternoon, and this Travelall pulls up. I'm not even 100 miles out of Bowling Green, and the guy driving the Travelall was Gary Burton.
No.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So for people that are listening who don't know Gary Burton is, at the time, it still is. He just retired as a premier vibist and educator in the world.
He was when Gary Burton and what was it? Didn't he do for a while some music where he'd have a whole bunch of different instruments? Who was that did all that? While he taught at Berkeley.
Harry Partch. Well, he dealt with Harry Partch. If you're talking about all the strange percussion instruments and very bizarre things, that was part of Gary's little fascination with that. But he was primarily a vibes player, and of course, he was with George Shearing. He's the guy playing vibes on "Girl from Ipanema."
Wow. Oh,
so yeah, that's the track that busted bossa nova wide open. So anyhow, he gives me a ride back because it turns out his house was 5 miles from my dorm. I had no idea, and so he gave me all this music and all this advice. And by 4 hours later, when he finally got back, he goes, "You know what? You should probably come to Berkeley. I'll get you in. Just write a letter. I'll take care of it." And he goes, "That's where all the vibes players are." So I split.
Wow.
And never looked back. But I really, and he changed my life. That my friends screwing me over changed my life.
You see how things can turn out for the good. And that was something I never knew. I never knew that story. But you were at Berkeley then did you finish and get a degree? You were there for how long?
Didn't ever actually finish. I started teaching there before I finished.
Really?
Yeah, it was a really strange little scene. My brother also, once I got there, my brother is 2 years younger than me. And once I got there, I just went, "This is nirvana. I mean, this is everything I ever thought I ever wanted to do right here in these buildings. Oh my God." And I called my brother up. I said, "Forget IU, forget all those other schools. This is where it's happening." And my brother is still teaching at Berkeley to this day.
Still teaches there.
Yeah, he runs the online music stuff. He does all music licensing and film scoring, TV series scoring. That's what he teaches. So,
wow. You gave me his number. This is maybe 24.
I remember when that happened.
Right.
Because you were looking for a singer in Boston.
Right. And a band and a band leader. And
because you were going with Kenny Washington. That was it.
I think Kenny and John Gove went with me.
Yes.
And we did this convention, and he came out, and the guys he brought were all Berkeley guys. And he brought out this guy named Jim, and right now his last name, he plays with the Boston Pops, but I forget his last name. I just remember it's Jim. And I was so blown away with that band because here was this drummer that was sitting there playing. He was almost like bored. You'd say, "Okay, this is a bossa nova," or so we're playing. He looked down at the charts. He'd go, "Yeah, whatever," and he just played like he was bored, and he was nailing everything better than any drummer I've ever heard play the show at the time that I was doing, and that whole band was like that. And that was your brother Brad. And the next time I went back, I was really sad because he said, "I'm retired. I'm not doing that anymore."
Yeah, I will tell you one thing that I do remember about that show, because right after it, my brother called me up and going, "Who is that singer, Kenny Washington, and why is he not famous?"
Right.
And I said, "He's not yet, but he will be."
Yeah. And Kenny still, and Kenny.
Oh, the minute he opens his mouth.
Right.
Yeah.
Now he's a guy I should have on and have just.
You should
just sit and sing. So anyway, so you finished Berkeley, or you you leave there. You didn't finish. You were teaching. How did you get to the Bay Area?
Well, that was a strange little bit, and I came out with a group of guys in a band called Booga Booga, and it was Frank Macchia was the leader, and he's probably watching right now. And when Frank says, "Hey, I'm going back to San Francisco," and we were all teaching there. Me, Frank Macchia, and Rick Walsh were all teaching at Berkeley at that time, and I'd been teaching for a couple of years. I was kind of stupid when I first started, Jeff. I can't begin to even tell you, because I was so used to, we're just kind of working all the time, and that's what I kind of did. And so I started teaching at Berkeley, and then I was playing jazz gigs every single night, or some kind of gig, and then grading papers at 2 a.m. And so after a couple of years of that, I finally thought, I'm teaching everybody to do what I want to actually be doing. And I said, I just wonder what's going to happen if I drop myself down in the city and see what happens. So I'd saved up my money, and when Frank said he was going to move back here, I said, I said, well, I'll come with you. And I remember exactly what he said, which is kind of old-fashioned and funny, because, hey, I didn't promise you a rose garden. I don't have any gigs or anything or connections or whatever. I'm just going back there and to start something. So, and I said, that's good enough for me. That was good enough for me.
So you came with Frank Macchia.
He already was out here. He'd already moved like 2 months before. I had to finish up a summer session at Berkeley, and in the fall, I drove out together with Rick Walsh.
Oh, now Rick and Frank weren't from here, were they? Or from the
no, Rick from Virginia. Frank is a San Francisco native.
Oh.
He lived up on Silver Ave, or off of Silver Ave, yeah.
So then you and Rick and Frank were going to school at Berkeley.
Mm-hmm. And then we all taught there.
Wow. See, now that's even more stuff I don't. I'm learning stuff every day. I mean, I'm learning, and here I thought I could never learn anything new.
Yeah. I can remember the first time I heard Frank's music. I was already teaching at Berkeley, and I was going to a concert, and they announced that the sax player had written this tune, and it's a very fascinating tune, and the title of the tune was Little Old Ladies on Dope. That was the name of the song.
That's so funny.
And I remember listening to this music, and it was insane. It was like Frank Zappa on acid. And I looked at my girlfriend at the time, and I said, I want to play with that band. And I did.
And that was in the what year was that? 80?
That's late 70s when we started playing with that band. We moved here in 81. So I was here around the same time you first showed up.
Yeah, about the same time, but I didn't really start working in the Bay Area till like 85. And
I was working pretty fast.
You were like the guy, you and Rick and Frank. And I remember you just gave me so many. You said, go play with this guy, go call this guy, go call that guy. And I ended up working with you, but more of Frank and Rick in Rich Martini's band. And that was because of you. And then the rest is history.
Yes. I made one really good failure. You want to hear this? I when I'm connecting people, I've rarely blown it, but I can remember one of my biggest failures of sorts. And I got this call from some guy that I didn't know. He was trying to get connected, and I had not played with this guy. I did not know him. I had not seen anything about it. So I said, okay, well, you want to call this guy and you want to call that guy, but you can't say you played with me because you haven't. Well, he did. He said he played with me. He got a gig, and I got a call from the band leader going, who was that piece of crap you sent on this gig? Don't ever do that to me again. And so then the next call I get, and this is going to crack everybody up. I'm not kidding. This is the next call I get, and I'm already pissed off and burnt out. And the phone rings, and it's a guy goes, "Hi, I've just moved to town, and I heard you might be able to connect me." And I said, "Well, what's your name?" He goes, "Jeff Beal."
Oh,
okay. So I don't know Jeff Beal. I don't, and I do now. No, it's funny, but I said, "Jeff, I can hook you up, but here's the thing. You can't say you played with me. You can't do any of that. You just got to hang on your own," because I just got burned really bad. Well, he gets a gig with Martini.
I remember. Yeah.
And Martini calls me back the next day going, "Who is that guy, Jeff Beal?" And I'm ready to go, "Oh, no, not again." But here's what he said. It was amazing. It was fantastic.
Right.
The only thing that was a problem, He read a newspaper all night long
because he was
because
bored.
Jeff could just look at the music and go, "Okay, got it," and he would memorize whatever it was immediately, and then read the New York Times.
Yeah, I remember when he was in the band and when he left and came to LA and all of a sudden he's doing writing for movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was disconcerting because it was just so easy. He just sit there and another one of those. I'm just going to chew bubble gum and just whatever. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, one of the things I remember that when he was in school, and I'd heard this from another classmate, they were getting ready for their Christmas concerts, and they were doing these intense rehearsals. And all of a sudden, Jeff raises his hand, and the conductor goes, "Jeff, yes." He goes, "Can I be excused? I need to do some Christmas shopping." And you just heard the whole orchestra just go, and you know what the conductor said?
What?
Okay. And you can corroborate that with Jeff.
Right.
But he got up, walked out,
Yeah.
and then did the concert, of course, perfectly. But
Wow.
yeah. So he was a major and is a major talent and a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've been trying to get these pictures for some reason. I'm not able to load them into my Switcher Studio, but I do have a way that I can show them, and it will be a little odd, but we'll be able to get it to work. And I'm hoping that people will see this. So bear with me. I'll hook you up on a story while I'm trying to do this. What happened with the Booga that you're telling me about, the band that you came out here with was Frank and Rick were in that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And Eric Jensen was on guitar.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Lockett, which was my wife's ex-husband, was on bass. Then we burned through a couple other bass players, Jeff Obie and some other guys over time. But it was a wonderfully wacky band, and the music was completely off the charts. There was hard to describe it, but it is like Frank Zappa playing pop music on acid. And I can see the picture you're setting up is my family band.
Okay, so I'm going to pull these up and kind of go through them while I know this is I'm just pulling them up. And so there's Michael and his family band. I know you're seeing my desktop, but this is the way I can do it right now.
Yeah, that works. Okay. That's I was playing drums. My sister Polly on flute, my sister Cindy on violin, my brother Brad on piano, and my sister Becky on French horn, who just retired as principal horn for the Rockford Symphony in Illinois.
Whoa!
So
man, so what kind of stuff were you playing? I mean,
we were doing little classical pieces and things like that back then.
Were your parents musical?
Both my parents could play music, but my dad was a doctor and my mother was a med tech. And so yeah, that's with Michael Smolin's band Earplay, where he had me doing all kinds of things. I'm playing vibes, I'm playing strange drums, I'm playing synthesizer, I'm playing accordion. You didn't hear it from me. He had not a silicon mallet, but not a mallet cat. Oh God, it's the weirdest one where you have to use special mallets to do it. So he had lots of really wacky music. Okay. It was fun. It was fun for a while.
All right, so now here is one. I've had this guy on, and almost anybody from the Bay Area will know some of these fellows in this band.
That's the ensemble,
right? And is Jimmy Sanchez on drums?
Yes, Jimmy Sanchez on drums, and Tony Baker on guitar. Okay, Tom Potts on sax.
Yeah, and who is the rest of the band?
I'm Joe DeVito on bass,
right,
and Eric on trumpet there, and he's right there. He's playing synth, but he also plays a million other things. He's also a great TV film score kind of guy.
Really, Eric Bolvin.
Yes.
Yep. And then who is the keyboard player?
That's me.
Duh. I'm going like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like you. I'm going,
that's me.
Man, so now you guys had a steady gig. This wasn't the joint. Is this the?
It was Route 66. Yeah, a real funky place in Burlingame.
That I didn't realize it looked so like a garage.
Yeah, it was exactly felt like that, but yeah, that's what it is.
You guys played there for how many years?
We played there for a good year and a half or two. We also played at the Miramar Beach Inn back when they had bands,
Right.
and so we had this Sunday night gig there.
Uh-huh. That's when I first met Jimmy Sanchez, and he would play with Garth Weber out there on Wednesdays.
Hmm.
Right? So that was all mid 70s stuff, right?
Well, this still had to be 80s because it's all out here.
Oh,
So
right. Mid 80s. I'm sorry.
yeah, and I also played with Garth back then too. For a while, I was playing in the Blue Meanies. He had a band with Michelle
Right.
Bastian, and that was a fun band.
Yeah,
Did that for a while.
I remember that. Okay, so I'm going to put your face back up here while I pull up a few more of the pictures you sent me. Um, so uh, tell me about the Dick. We were doing the Dick Bright thing and doing just in the 80s in general. I know you were doing lots of gigs with Dick and doing the club gigs and all of the weddings and casuals. And how was all that going for you in the 80s?
It was I was used to being busy, and I really am not a musical curmudgeon per se. As long as the guys could play, I didn't care what style we were playing or what we were doing,
Mhm.
as long as it was fun. That was my main thing. Is I like to have fun, which would throw off some of the serious players sometimes, I suppose. But because I'm the jack of all trades, master of none. I would say the only instrument that I probably could say I have some serious chops on is vibraphone and marimba. But as a piano player, I could play left-hand bass without thinking about it. So that was one of the things that got me a gig, because it's like, oh wow, we don't have to hire one other guy.
Right.
And
Well,
the other thing was I always had good equipment, so I sounded decent. So
always sounded good. So from a band leader's perspective, and I needed somebody that I knew could cover everything, is call Michael. Call Michael. He can sing, he can play all the keyboards, he sounds good, he's got good personality, shows up on time, we're good. And you need a PA, Michael will bring it.
yeah, well, that was another big part of my life that other people would laugh at me as I'm setting up all this stuff, and then they'd be going, well, we're going home, Hatfield, see you later, and I'd be quietly loading out by myself, knowing it's going to be another hour before I'm out of there. But I saved all that money.
Right. Yeah, so that was the other thing that I want to ask you. The other part of what you did was the sound company. Tell me the sound company that you started with Larry.
With Larry Walker, yeah. And it's still going on. Actually, it's just there's no work right now, but it's still going on. Everybody's moved their dates to September. I'll be lucky to see if it happens, but
Yeah,
hopefully it will.
at this point,
But
anybody who I have had a few people call me for August, but I am not real sure. I think they're being optimistic.
yeah, we'll see. I'm just playing this one whole by ear. I've never been like this before, neither of you, and so we're just gonna figure it out and see how to keep alive.
Okay.
But but building the sound thing was one of those things where I had gotten to the point where my friends would call me all the time, going, "Hey, Hatfield, man, I got this gig and I need to bring a PA. Can I borrow one of yours?" And that went on for a while, and I finally just said, "You know what? You can rent it." And that's when I found out who my real friends were, and then I met Larry Walker, and we it was very funny when I met him, because he was a wild man back then. He was just crazy, and we enjoyed each other's company a lot. And so we're playing this gig, and his drums are always falling apart, and I'm fixing them with Leathermans and screwdrivers and pieces of hanger, trying to put his drums back together. And one day, as I'm trying to fix his hi-hat for the 50th time, I said, "So Larry, you got anything else you do besides play music?" And he goes, "Yeah, I own a music store." And I just dropped the tools and said, "Get a new effing hi-hat." So and then so then the next time he showed up, he had a nice kit of drums that sounded great, and it didn't break, and was perfect.
Oh.
So then he got the gig at the Venetian Room as the audio mixer.
Oh, okay. I remember that now. I didn't know he had a music store, but now I remember he was.
Yeah, he owned Noe Valley Music.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. So let me pull up a picture though of what you sent me of where did it go? Where did it go of this man? And,
Marky Love.
yep. And because this, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
There he is. And because this is here's the interesting thing about all the stuff that we're talking about for you. If I remember, there's no real I did this and then I did this and then I did this. It's pretty much you've just done the same thing the whole time and just always worked, making your living doing what we're talking about.
Here's how I did it. The phone rang and they said, and I said, yes. And then I hung up the phone and said, what the hell did I just do? And then I figured it out.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Then, and you guys are still working too, right?
Yes.
Buddy Love.
Yes.
Buddy Love on top, and then there's Marky.
Yeah, Marky. Now, Marky was with the Freaky Executives for many years. That was a band I adored. I loved that band. They were wild. If you ever look up some crazy Freaky Executive stuff on YouTube, you will just be blown away by their dance antics. That's really fun.
I remember that was in the 80s primarily, right? And
they for Freaky Executives, but Marky was on tour with Sylvester and 2 Tons of Fun and Eddie Money. So he did all those gigs and did world tours with those guys.
Wow. Okay. And then here is the other
the Budster.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at you guys. Now, you know what? I'll never forget the first time I heard him sing. And he would get up there and it was a show and tell.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the
I was like, where the hell did this guy come from? I'll never forget. I mean, that was
Blue-Eyed Soul. That's it. Blue-Eyed Soul.
Yeah. All right. So what other pictures did you send here? Oh, here's another one of you guys. And this is a little earlier again.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was,
and that band, it was a total fluke how that came about.
How that happened?
Well, there was back in the days of the Paradise Lounge, which was a very popular place.
Right.
And every Thursday night for about a year, the Dinos played, which the Dinos was quite the band, and it had Scott Matthews in it, and Mike Hyman, and little Roger Clark, and it was a great wacky band, and they trashed tunes. That was the thing that they did, is they kind of did these wacky, trashy arrangements, and they said no rehearsals ever. That was their motto. And so after being on for a year, they wanted a night off, and they called up Buddy, who was not Buddy at that point, but was Robert Vickers, and said, hey, man, we want the night off. You want to come in to the Paradise and do whatever you want. And so Robert called me and goes, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. Why don't we do tunes that we hate? And he goes, ooh. And he goes, now I have this character, he goes, I've been thinking about. And he says, and I said, okay, what's that? He goes, well, it's Buddy Love. And I said, well, yeah, that's the Nutty Professor. That's Jerry Lewis. He goes, but I'm not going to spell it the same. And, and it's a character who's a lounge singer that thinks he's the greatest. And I said, okay. And so we went in and made a list of all the tunes that we actually hated, and then performed them for the night. And it was hysterically funny because we were laughing at our own selves. The club owner thought it was funny. He goes, hey, man, come back for another time. I thought that was really enjoyable. So he came back one more time, and he goes, do you want your own night? And we said, sure. He goes, how about Tuesday? I said, great. So for 9 years, we played every Tuesday night doing that wacky stuff.
The Paradise Lounge, I'm trying to remember, wasn't that in Daly City?
No, it was right downtown, 9th and Folsom. It was Soma, south of Market.
Oh.
Right across from the Oasis and Slim's, across the street from Slim's,
right.
DNA Lounge.
Right.
That's the corner.
Yeah. I was thinking wasn't there a place in Daly City for a while that there was music, though?
Well, that's where Buddy and Dick were, and the Red Chimney.
Oh.
That was 70s, though.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's where Buddy and Dick kind of got their thing together. So,
and
Dick, right.
I'm remembering the Paradise Lounge now. It takes me a minute because not all the brain cells are there, because this is a while ago. But then the Buddy Love show, it turned into something that it's not just the three of you guys just sitting and playing. You do things with the whole band and big band and stuff.
We did expand it with 6 horns, and it takes on a different character when we go that route. I do adore the trio format because, and I miss parts of it, because the part that I miss was we would take big chances.
Mm.
And the audience would go right there with us going, are they going to make this? Are they going to pull this off? Because we would just pull rabbits out of our hats. But
Right.
when you have six horns playing in a rhythm section, you can't really pull rabbits, so we have to be a little more safe. It's still fun.
Yeah, but you guys still up until now, we're still going out and doing corporate gigs and
Yes.
sort of thing, right?
Yes.
Um, and how has that been able? I mean, the style of music you guys are doing, what were you doing to make it relevant? Were you doing some modern stuff and putting a spin, your buddy spin on it?
When we did the corporate thing, we had several ways we would package the thing.
Mhm.
And one of the packages was we do a 30-minute show
Mm.
that's really a show. Sit down, eat your dinner, here's a show, and we do the comedy routine. Then we take a break, come back, and then we play dance music for 2 hours.
Oh,
And
that's
that worked forever. So we went to Hawaii, went to Puerto Rico, we went everywhere, traveling all over the place, doing those kind of things.
And when you did those kinds of jobs, did you take the whole band, or would you go the three of you and hire some guys on?
It really depended. It just depended on budgets and what we could do. When we could, we took everybody with us when we could. And a couple times we went to Arkansas, took the whole band, and picked up a whole string section in Arkansas and did a show with strings.
Wow.
That was Rick Walsh did all their string arrangements, and so that was hysterically funny because they didn't know what hit them. And
so the size of the band, what you had 6 horns, 2 trumpets, bone, and 3 saxes.
yes.
And did you do some of those arrangements, or did Rick?
And now I'm doing more than I used to. Yeah, when it first started out, I was basically doing all the trio arrangements and formatting the tunes and doing the vocals and all that other stuff. And I would let Rick and all the horn players do the bigger arrangements where they wanted to do that bit because that's what they do every day.
Right.
But in the last few years, I've said, okay, I can do this, so I do it,
Right.
and I have fun doing it.
Yeah. Well, because that brings us, I'm getting into another part of something that you were really, really known for. But I want to guess, when you did the strings, how many strings did you have? Did you?
In this particular case, I think we had, I want to say 4 or 5 violins, 3 violas, 2 cellos, and I don't think no bass. We didn't need a bass on that one, but so it was a string section from the Little Rock Symphony. There's sort of their core players.
And you have those, so you could do that anytime. And
yes.
All right.
Yes. So that's still part of the package. If we do sell it, it's usually it's kind of a 70s show is what that is. So where all the Barry White kind of string sections and stuff. So, yeah. Yes. Love Unlimited Orchestra. We are that. Love Unlimited.
That's beautiful. Yeah, buddy. Love Unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here's the other thing that for forever I was able to do when I had a gig and somebody said, okay, can you do this song for the first dance? And I'd ask somebody, no, we don't know it. Call Michael. call Michael. And before real books and all that stuff got really popular and famous, one thing that you had in your arsenal, in your room somewhere, you had stacks and stacks and stacks of sheet music and little charts that you've done, chord charts and all this sort of stuff. And everybody knew that if they needed the tune for something, call Michael, he'd get you the tune. And I remember these days, you remember the days of the fax machines and the
yes. I used to have 5 filing cabinets. I'm down to 1.
Because you do it all online now.
Yes, I slowly are taking things that I'd written by hand many years ago, which I still have, the originals, and I just put them into Sibelius and keep on going.
Have you put together books of music that you were able to sell, or do you charge like
people will call me up and say, I need this tune with this arrangement and this key, and I'll transcribe it or do whatever needs to get done and write the parts out and then farm it out. I mean, I'll put it up and send it out to them. I still do that to this day.
So this is one thing that I'm kind of getting at here is as a musician, you have found so many different ways to utilize your talents and skills in the music business and industry, like Rich today. Because you write charts and you do that for people, you got sound for people, you can get people for people, and you teach. And I mean, you're just all this all around stuff that you can do. and play a couple of different instruments.
Yeah,
So
I have fun.
right. So over the years, it just, if again, I'm just speaking as a band leader or somebody that needed something, it was always and still is. I will still call you every now and then. I'll go, hey Mike, you got do
Do
you
you have that microphone there? I need six wireless microphones and a headset. Yeah, I got them. You know.
it's it's just it's kind of amazing because I think a lot of folks, I remember sitting on gigs, a lot of guys were in awe of you and how you were able to work and use your talents and skills to you created a need. I mean, I don't know if you were intentionally setting out saying, okay, I'm going to be the guy that everybody knows to find people. I'm going to be the guy that everybody knows to has music. You just had it and just something you did. And people started to know you were just the guy to call. Is that
Actually, I had a little goal in mind because when I moved here from Boston, I have to tell you this: I went from college professor to deliverer of fish for
no?
a catering company. So, but I had to have a job. You know, I needed some way to get my foot in the door. And I can remember I got here in September, but my first actual gig was like a week or two later, not even. And I'm plugging in a new phone machine. And right when I plugged it in, the phone rang. I dropped the machine and broke it. And it was Rick Vandeveer. And Rick asked me, he goes, man, I heard you moved to town. And I said, yeah, you got me already. And he goes, my vibes player is sick. Can you cover for him on a gig right now? And I got in my car and drove to the firehouse in Pacific. And that was my first gig.
Wow.
And my second gig was Halloween in Mare Island. And that was the beginning of it. And after that, I quit the job.
Wow. Wow. So you didn't have to deliver fish too long.
Not too long. No. But I did it.
Right. And so you just went from there and you just hard worked. And here's the one thing that I think, because I've been talking about this a lot with guys, all the guys that I've been talking to, the one thing that made them uniquely successful in the music industry and business is their work ethic and showing up and taking it upon themselves to learn more about what it is, other things and other aspects of the business, and learn and grow and just keep working and expanding with a good attitude and the intention of, well, I can be better at this. I can be better at that. How can I do this? And having that work ethic and then being nice, showing up on time and always being nice to people. And it's that everybody has that one common thread. You, Rich, Tommy Politzer, all the people that I've talked to, that's the common thread. John Mater, you know,
Yeah.
it's okay. I've got this gig. Oh, I'm going to learn it. What tunes do I need to know? Boom, boom, and that's been you from the day I've met you. And not only did you have all of that, but you are also extremely generous, and trying to help other people get gigs and find gigs. And that's another thing. I learned, I called the guy, I'm not going to mention his name because everybody listening knows him. I called him one time and I said, do you have a number? Somebody said you might know so-and-so. And he goes, you got $50? And I go, no, I don't. He goes, well, okay, call me when you can, give me $50. I'll give you the name. But not Michael. Michael goes, yeah, what do you need?
No,
You know?
I didn't mind. It's like, look, my whole philosophy was if I'm on your gig, it's because you want me to be on your gig, because you're comfortable having me on your gig and you feel better that I'm on your gig. If there's somebody else that should be there, I want to give my seat up and let them have it, because a band should sound as good as it's ever going to sound. And if I'm not that right guy, and trust me, there's plenty of bands where I was the right guy for a year or 2 years or whatever, but then somebody else took that chair, and the band became some other thing, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, the one thing though that, as you said about covering gigs, especially for corporate gigs where there's a wide variety of people and somebody to lead the band and get it, call the tunes and get it going, you were always really, really good at that. And that was the one thing that set, if I had you on a gig, I always knew I could trust the shit was just going to be okay because Michael can take care of it. He can run the band, he'll sing okay, call it, and just keep it rolling. And not everybody has that talent. And it takes, I remember, and excuse me for talking so much, but I remember throwing a handful of guys out that were like the most talented guys ever. And they sucked because nobody could take charge.
Yeah.
They were just great players, but they would stand and say, okay, so what key are we going to do this in? All right, well, what style should we do? And by that time, people left the dance floor,
Yes.
the band, and
I'm always trying to think ahead. I'm trying to see where it's going to go. And while I'm actually playing the tune and singing the tune, I'm actually thinking, and because I didn't use a set list very often, only when there was too much paper to deal with, and then would I bother using a set list. But if it's if small band, 5-6 pieces, I'm just going to fly off the top of my head, because once something starts going, I just want to continue on that way till it's time to let it move on.
Right. And I think the word that finally hit me as I'm describing you to you, it's just like being a professional. Just be professional, and I think a lot of people kind of forget how to do that one time.
What's always interesting to me is, and I remember this from a Dick Bright thing he told me once, and we were doing the Bammies, and all of a sudden he goes, "So Hatfield, you're going to take care of this tune and count it off and take." And I'm going, "Wow, okay." The guy in charge just threw this at me, and so I took it seriously and I did it and everything else. And after that, the band came up to me and goes, "You're the first guy that actually kind of really did it. Everybody else was just concerned with how cool they would look doing it."
No,
I said, "No, to me, it's like they gave me a job. I've taken care of the job. This is what needs to happen." And it's okay. Yeah.
So, two more things that now came to mind while we're talking. This is another aspect of the thing you do. So I was talking to Mark Austin yesterday morning, and the first gig he hired me for was to have a live band to do like a Johnny Carson kind of thing. So it was play on behind it was, I believe, Sun Microsystems and Scott McNeely.
Right. Yep.
And
I was musical director for that a couple times.
Right. So I called you for that, and you became my band leader. Now, I know you did a lot of that kind of stuff. Tell me about some of the people listening. Not only did you do all the stuff we've been talking about, but you also did a lot of corporate shows, I know, with Dick and some different things. And San Francisco is a big corporate town where there's band passing through. Tell me about some of the people and experiences you had with that.
Well, I was MD for a bunch of Apple shows for a couple of years, and and it was very intense. Though I dearly love the product and I love the people and everything else, but they would run off the seat of their pants, and I would be staying up half the night rehearsing until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning with executives with a 6 a.m. call for the next morning, and with a lot of music to write for the next morning that they just said we're going to need. So there's a lot of that going on. Yeah. But it paid really well if I could keep my, head together. And that was a big deal. And so I did that. I did a whole bunch that took me traveling about. And there was always guys that could do it better than me on some levels. But when it came to me being able to put on a headset, talk to a show caller while still playing a tune and getting up the next tune, and having those three things happening simultaneously while singing, I could do that. I don't know why I could do it. I never understood it. As a matter of fact, the fact I even became a keyboard player was because of my brother not being back in time for a gig, and I got thrown into it, and I found out I could play left-hand bass. I never had tried.
Wow. So, what you were just describing is the times that I do a show and I've got a headset on, they start talking to me, I lose my mind. So, so I have an utmost respect for somebody who can play, sing, call the tunes, get the charts up, and listen to the stuff that's coming in the headset. That takes some. Yeah.
It was, I don't know why I could do that. I just found out I could, and or I attempted to do it, and I didn't let it put me off. And so it got me where I needed to go.
Yeah. Hey, so let me ask you, do you have the piano sitting in front of you?
I have the grand over here, but this piano is coming through my loop back, and I don't think you can hear it without me going to some lengths.
Oh,
So,
oh,
because I am sitting in front of a workstation, but I'm set up for. I've been teaching Zoom for musicians, so I've been explaining that setup, which I showed to you.
right.
I can share my screen. Would you want me to do that and show that what that is?
Yeah, that would be great because
Okay.
that was the other thing because now everybody's trying to figure out how to do online stuff.
Yeah, it's a necessity.
Right.
So I'm gonna see if I can put it on my screen. Application window. There it is. Okay, so this is one of the things I've been teaching other keyboard players and teachers how to use, because it directly pipes all my audio from the computer down the Zoom pipeline. Obviously, it doesn't go through your switcher pipeline that we've set up, because I am not the host. I am the recipient. But so all my stuff is set up. So I have my GarageBand, Google Chrome, H4 device, iTunes, Transcribe, which is something I use quite a bit. And then I have other setups, which I'll switch to right now, and which will have my entire XR mixer in it, and I can pipe it where I need it to go. And so that's what I've been teaching.
So let me ask you then from that. So I can take that and pump it into my mixer, into my Focusrite.
Correct. Whatever's finally feeding your final mix going into what you're talking about. Yes. So all your internal apps will stay cool, not have to come out into any speakers, go directly from your computer, so they hear what you hear.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to get that, and I'm going to start working with it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to try to do a show on Tuesday nights to have people on and talk about this stuff, because everybody wants to know, and everybody should be doing this, because it's the only way, at least for the next 3 months or so, we're going to be doing. And how would the Zoom work for your teaching? And
well, what I would do, I can demonstrate that a little bit more. Let me put a student project or something like it up here. Let me just put it so I can tell you what I do here. I'm going to find one that will work, that will give a little test of it. Oh, okay, here's a church tune. I'll do that. Okay, so I'm going to put up a little GarageBand on here, and I'm going to share it as soon as I can get into my share mode here. And we're doing it. Off we go. We're going to share an application window, and it's going to be GarageBand. So when you're teaching online and you're having to deal with students, and one of the things I teach a bit online is composition, songwriting, and that sort of thing. So a student will be looking at that, or they're writing a song, and I say, okay, now you have to identify your own chord here. You wrote this chord. What is it? And they go, ooh, they have to figure that stuff out and know what it is. So that's what I'm doing, and teaching them how to put a tune together and all those sorts of things. So that's part of what I do in my own teaching, and teaching other people how to do.
And so if somebody wants to know that, they can, I've put your name up, your website. You have a website?
Yes.
And that
michaelhatfield.com.
So that's pretty easy, michaelhatfield.com. And then they can reach out to you and ask you how to do all this. And you have Zoom classes. Is there is that just a class that you've set up, or is it through?
Actually, there's an interesting history on that one. I knew almost nothing about Zoom as of a month ago, and when this thing hit, I'm a friend of Neil Livonius, and Neil Livonius is a Bay Area trumpet player who is an amazing player, and it turns out he works for Zoom. And I start hearing that, okay, well, all the schools are going to turn to this Zoom thing, and the minute that started happening, I found out that everybody was struggling with sound and teaching in this way, because it's a very intense environment. Teaching in online is, especially a classroom, is, I can't even imagine. I teach mostly one-on-one and small things. But anyhow, so he said, Hatfield, I'm going to start this thing for Zoom for musicians. Would you mind being a moderator? And so I immediately, guess what I did, Jeff? What I always do. I just said, I better look this up. So I looked it up. I started testing it and running it and using people as guinea pigs while I figured out some things to do. Talked to my brother, who helped immensely. I can't begin to tell you how much he helped. And started the whole process. So now you'll see that page is running, and there's 1 million poor teachers all over the world that check in there trying to get their rigs together. So we
Wow.
have people from Germany, Australia, England, and all through the United States, and they're all trying to do the same thing: is set up classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, John Conley, the guy that I'm going to have on and talk about stuff, he was, I don't know if you know him, but he was originally from the Bay Area, worked for DigiDesign, and he became the Pro Tools rep in LA. But he started doing a Zoom class at Berkeley teaching Pro Tools. And I don't think he knows about this loopback thing. I don't know.
No, well, he probably didn't have to do it that way exactly for it. I mean, you can use your computer sound for one particular thing, but in the case of a classroom teacher, they need to pull material from all over the place. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be preaching now, but on the Zoom platform, for a teacher to actually hand somebody a PDF while they're still talking and everything else, it's very easy to do. And then the student has it on their screen immediately, and there we go. And it's not sharing screens. It's like just there's an open portal there that you can open and say that we're going in and take this file.
Right. So the Zoom platform is a little different. This is, we're getting kind of tech talky here, and there are probably people liking this, but that's different from what I'm doing. This platform is mostly just remote videos and for shooting.
It's broadcasting. Yeah,
exactly. So, and its weakness is audio, you know, and so whenever I try to pull up or have somebody play something, it just, it sounds okay, but it's not great. That's why I've ended up doing this whole interview format, which is still fun and people get to learn, but Zoom for teaching. And now here's the other question. Have you noticed, have you ever had anybody try to play across the platform together?
It's I've already dealt with it. The only way you can really do it effectively is call and response. So as a drummer, the one drummer on one says, here's the lick, the other drummer plays it back, because it depends on where you are. However, having said that, there is a abandoned technology that's being unburied, shall we say, for a distance of about 400 to 500 miles, and which the latency is to the point where it's non-noticeable. You know, it's like, it's not bad. It's like being on too big of a stage. You know what I mean? When you're on a big stage, it's too big, and you go, man, this is wacky. But you can get through the night. Okay. You know. Yeah. And you just trust. You trust. Right. However, and there's some Bay Area names there. You know, Dan Meblin from Pop Rocks was part of this thing, and all of a sudden they're coming back alive because it's like, this is needed. So for people in certain locales, it could happen. So for a school system, not a bad deal, because everybody's going to live within a few miles.
Right. So like here, my youngest is in Burroughs High School, which is famous because the Glee TV show was based on their pop choir, which she's part of. Now she had to have a little class, and they're using Google Classroom right now. But Zoom would probably be a better format for them, I think. I don't know.
Might be. Here's the deal, because you can pipe nice, especially from the host side, it can sound exactly perfect, and plus you can also give them all the MP3s right then and there through the portal. Right. But one of the things you do is you put the music through, and then you mute all their mics so you don't have cacophony, because they're all going to come back at a different time. Right. They're not all. It's never going to sync.
Right. And here's the thing that, as we know, because we've been doing this, but there are a lot of musicians and singers that maybe haven't had experience like us. They still are thinking, isn't there a way we can do this where there isn't latency?
Like, it will happen. It will happen. It'll have to be like a light pipe thing. It can't be public internet per se. Right. It's going to be, because it's got to go there and come back for you to monitor.
Yeah, that's the issue. Because by the time I send to you and you send it back to me, I mean, right now what we're doing is 400 or 500 miles.
Yes, exactly. And so, but it will happen. It will probably cost money at first, and then it'll eventually happen, and we'll be bouncing off a satellite or something like that. It will happen.
And then we can stay socially isolated for the rest of our lives.
The new normal. The new normal. Oh, it's driving me crazy.
Michael. All right. So now just one thing that I just want to also, that sort of clocked in my head is, when I first met you, you took me out for dinner with you and Valerie, and with my wife at the time, and we went to one of your favorite restaurants in San Mateo. Do you remember what that restaurant?
Oh, it's probably Ellis, 325 Ellis. It was
Yeah,
probably, yes, that
yeah,
sounds right. Yeah.
right. And man, you know what? Because I was kind of new to California and new with her, and that was so nice. I will never forget the kindness of your heart from that moment, because not a lot of there's a lot of musicians that are nice, but people that just generally want to take you in and become friends. That isn't something a lot
Yes.
of people want to do.
But you know what it is too, Jeff, is because I saw you had drive and you did not stop. You said, no, I have a vision and I have a feeling that this guy might lead me to part of it. And I'm going to keep going until I get there. I respect that like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yep.
see. I didn't know that I came off that way.
No, I could. It's a thing about drive. You see people with drive; they have a little intensity to them, and you can see that they're not. Or at least I feel like I can see that they're not a user. They're a spreader of stuff. They want to make more things happen, which we could all be part of. And
Right.
that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, having said that, we're getting close to an hour, which it went by pretty quick. So a couple of
Pretty wacky stuff.
right. Um, when I started doing this, my intention wasn't to get anything for myself. My first intention was, I'm doing this to maybe do some voiceovers or something, and I just need to keep myself from going crazy. I'm going to get a few people up and talk to them on this, and then it's been 2 weeks. It's kept me completely out of what's going on out in the world, which
Yeah.
is the good thing, because it's sucking right now. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
pretty. And it's not that I want to bury my head in the sand, but I don't really need that I need to stay positive. So this has helped me stay positive. And now what I'm starting to see as a benefit for a lot of people is the fact that the people that are tuning into you and me talking, and then they tuned in this afternoon to Rich, all of our circles of people start intersecting, and it's possible that through that other people will get to know you and other people get to know him. So maybe from a higher mindset, I'm hoping that I can connect some other worlds to each other through this.
It is. Connection is everything, and to me, meeting a new player, it's oh man, it's exciting because you hear some fresh notes, some fresh ideas, different concept, different way to do it. I'm all about that. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And you've always been quick to take people in, me, no, I'm not. So I'm judgmental. No, I'm so, no. No, I'm usually, you heard my story. I don't know if you listened to my story, but when I first met Tom Politzer and my first gig with the circus, I did the show, and then after the show, they were all standing and talking, and they were trying to talk amongst themselves whether they even wanted me to play the next show. So I've always been the kind of guy, like, whenever people are talking amongst themselves, I'm going like, uh-oh, I'm getting fired.
Hey, my fired sign. I always could tell you, if the waitress and the bartender liked you, you're out of there.
Right. Oh man. All right. So, I could go on for another hour, but we kind of covered your
I think we covered a lot, Jeff, and it's been a lot of fun.
It has been. So I'm going to take us out again with because I love Tower of Power, and I'm trying to get David Garibaldi. I'd like to get him on, because I mean, we all as drummers want to hear
Yes.
his stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to take out, this is becoming it's not my theme song. Every time I play it, the little window comes up and says, do you have permission to play that?
They're going to find you, Jeff. They're going to find you.
I'm sure. I got all the guys on the band in my show.
It's true.
It is.
All right, dude.
All right. Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right.
I'll see you.
All right.
Bye.